All right, so 2-point perspective. Well, let's start with the basics of drawing a perspective. We'll start with 1-point perspective. First, we have the horizon line. This line is not necessarily where the sky meets the ground. Rather, this is our eye level, or the plane that our eyes are at. And any object that is below this, we would be looking down on top of that object. Any object above this horizon line, we'd be looking up at. For the most part, I normally have the horizon line approximately in the middle of my carvings, approximately on eye level. So this is the horizon line. The classic example of 1-point perspective or a vanishing point is the train tracks, where we have a pair of train tracks that the rails converge in the distance, because as things get further away from us, they become smaller. So likewise, a lot of times in drawing examples, you'll see telegraph poles drawn out as well, and those would get smaller into the distance as they taper away. So that's 1-point perspective. 2-point perspective, or 2 vanishing points, is what you use for drawing, say, a cube or a house in perspective. So let's draw our cube here. And I'm just freehanding this, but you would want to use a ruler to, well, you see how much off I was. You would want to use a ruler to draw to your perspective points. And in 2-point perspective, we just make any vertical lines vertical. There is a 3-point perspective for doing a very tall building that we'd be looking up at or looking down off the top of a skyscraper, where the vertical lines would also taper. But this gives us the walls of our house in perspective. And if I were to do a square down here, you can see how you would see the top of a cube. Give some. Well, now it looks like a table, so I'll give it a bottom here. So that shows how you can draw a 3-dimensional object on paper. And so here you see what I've been talking about, where the horizontal lines taper toward the perspective point. Now, let's turn this into a house. There's several different ways to take this drawing and turn it into a house. And one way to do that is, first we need to find the foreshortened center of the wall, of the end wall. And I say foreshortened, if you're not familiar with what that is, foreshortening is, say, taking the round end of my mallet here, that's round, but to draw it on paper, we would have to draw it as an oval. So that's foreshortening. In the case of our wall, I draw an X on the wall from the corners, and where they cross, that's the foreshortened center of the wall. And you can see how the section that's closer to us is larger than the section that's further away from us. So it's not the actual center, it's just the foreshortened center. Now, from that point, I can draw a vertical line And depending on how much slope I want on my roof, I can, draw this angle at any point. And so that gives me the angle of the end of the roof. Now, the top of the roof goes back to the perspective point over there. And we just need to figure out what this line here is. And this is where the oblique vanishing point comes in.